Hey guys, Queen Anne Hayman here. Welcome. This is CrossFit Monroe, and I've had the privilege of working with these guys to help them build out their new gym space, and I'm very excited because it's what I love to do. This is the second space I've worked on. I did a lot of work for Pushbox in Seattle, and I've enjoyed working with those guys, and then that's my home CrossFit gym, and this is my home away from home. Anyway, so we just put up this sign, brand new sign, and CrossFit Monroe. Very excited. All right, come on in, let's take a look at it. So, these are our walls, and when we came in, when we looked at the space, these guys had their main rig basically just right here in the middle of the floor. And there wasn't a lot of space either side to do a lot of activities. It was kind of a closed space. So one of the ideas those guys had was, let's open up the space. And the way to open up the space is to take the rack apart and break it into two sections. So we broke it into one section and then the second section, which opened up all the floor space for classes. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the construction of like what is behind these walls. Like, how did we come up with this design? And this is the second time I've kind of used this design. And as you can see, the structure of this building, these are 2x6s, just horizontally installed, and those run all the way down. As you can see, we have the rig attached into the wall, and so we wanted to make that as strong as possible. So what we did was we took 2x4s and we ran the 2x4s every 16 inches on center all the way across, and we did that vertically, so they just go in all the way across. And then we measured, and we wanted to make sure that there was a stud wherever the rig was going to be attached into those 2x6s. So we did that, and those got nailed on, and at the top they got screwed on. So you want to make sure you're using the right fastener to attach those 2x4s on. A nail is great for shear. Shear is like a cross action like that. A screw is good for pull out, because pull out is pulling forward like this. So not only did we nail, but we also put some screws in wherever, we screwed the 2x4s in wherever we went into the wall. And that makes a nice strong connection. The next thing we did, so now we have the 2x4s there, and then we took OSB and we laid the sheets on the ground basically, the 4x8 sheets, and we did a brick pattern. So if we had, just like you would see like the old subway tile, brick subway, or laying bricks on a house. Two pieces come together and then another 4x8 stacks on top of it. So you never share the same seam. And again, that creates a nice strong wall. And then we're going opposite, the 2x4s are going vertically, then we laid the OSB over the top going horizontally, and then we stacked that up to the 8 feet. And then we finished that off, so that all got nailed on. And then we finished off with this really nice, this is a birch ply, a white birch ply, and it comes pre-finished. It's a 4mm thickness. It's not very thick. And it's a really nice surface to do your wall walks on. I prefer it over a plexi. Plexi has a different feel to me compared to I feel this to be a little bit more slippery compared to the plexi. And plexi also cracks very easily, especially when you're trying to fasten or drill through it. The only issue we had with this stuff, because it was so thin, is that we had to put in, we started with 16 inches on center, screwing it in, but then we had to do every 8 inches on the corners, on the edges, because the wood was flexing out and kind of bending, and it didn't look good. So adding the additional screws really pulled it in and made it look more flush. And that will happen. So once all that got done, obviously we had to do all the cutouts for all the electrical that was here. That was fun. One of my favorite parts was doing this corner where we had this conduit coming through the wall, And how do you make that look nice? That was a real thought. So we basically took the plywood up to where it begins, and then we cut a vertical. We cut two pieces and then sandwiched them together and just cut out a little hole for the pipe to go through, and it looks great. So that was one of my fun little things. Whenever you're doing a wall or whenever you're doing a gym, you really want to plan it out. Think about where stuff's going to go. How are things going to be utilized? Where are the plates going to go? How are people going to get bars? What's the logical flow? And once you have that information, then you can start laying out stuff. These guys, really super smart. We've got storage, weight plates, and bars on this side for people that want to go to this rack. And then in the middle here, we've got, again, bars, again, for these two racks. Same thing, weights here for these two racks. And finally, another set on the end. And it just allows the flow to happen quite quickly. When people go to get to their weights, they have weights readily available. They don't have to run across the room to grab something or put something away. It tends to be a lot better organized when everything's conveniently put to the correct side. That being said, you have to think about, okay, where am I going to mount these bar storage holders? How are we going to do that? And so what we did in between the 16-inch wood studs is we added cross bracing, 2x6s, exactly where these holders are mounted onto. And that allowed us to have a nice strong bond to hold the 45-pound bars and 35-pound bars. Same thing with the holding the weight stacks. Again, the 2x6 behind those to hold the weight of those weights. So again, think about how you're going to use your space. What are you going to be putting? Where you're going to be putting something, and why are you going to be doing something? I remember on this space, I said, "Hey guys, let's do the whole thing. Let's put the cross bracing all the way through, because what if you get more members and we need to put up more bars? We have space to do that. Although this is pretty full right now." So that was cool. Another thing, let's talk about the rig. I've seen a lot of rigs, and I've worked on a bunch of different rigs. And one of the mistakes that I see is they do not connect the rig to the wall. They don't hold it in place. They just leave it kind of free floating. And what I mean when I say that is, you can see here, this is where the rig ends. And I basically created a bar from the top here that takes it all the way to the wall. So that means the rig cannot move this way, back and forth. If you don't have a beam connecting into a solid surface, when you get 15 people on here and they start moving, it can move and rotate. So the first thing you want to do is make it solid. So we bolted on, we drilled some holes into the wall, and as the same, you can see that we did the same thing here. We bolted on. This is again a bar we made, and we found some connections. They're called rail connections, basically. And you can see we tapped into this, so now this also has the strength to prevent it from moving back and forth. Back on this end, same thing. We put a big bar at the top there, again, preventing any movement from side to side. So this rig is very, very sturdy and is not going to be going anywhere. Of course, we used 3.5-inch long by 1/2-inch concrete bolts going into the concrete floor, and those are great. Make sure you go long enough. Don't go short. If you go short, there's no strength in that. You do need to go down. This was a 6-inch slab. This concrete slab, 6 inches. We went down 3 inches. Yeah. What else? It's pretty cool. So for the electrical, you can pass wires through. We made sure that there was space behind the wall to be able to pull wires back and forth if need be. There's little cutouts there, which is just trying to think about all the possibilities. We didn't want to have a bunch of wires hanging down that people could hit or could get caught on something for safety, so we wanted to make sure those were protected. New 75-inch TV up there. Looks fabulous. This is a Sonos system with multiple speakers around the room. And there's a subwoofer in the corner there, which is very nice. So let's talk about this area here. So when we looked at the space originally, or the original layout of the space, there was a huge set of stairs that basically started here, ran up into this corner. So it just ran straight up and turned. And there was a wall, this was partially walled in because of the stairs. So it was basically really not open space. And then, like I said, the stairs came down to here. So again, this wasn't very usable. So we basically took the stairs out. We took the stairs out, which opened up all of this space for storage and bringing stuff back, in and out. We took the stairs off that, and we moved the stairs over here to a part of the gym where it was kind of a dead space and against the wall, and again, safely out of the way. So I basically just took the stairs off and just brought them and put them at the same configuration. I just cut them down. I think we took off one stair in order to get it to meet the top edge of this. We reused the original support that was on the old one. We did some upgrades. So the railing that runs around the top of this was just two 2x4s running horizontally, and anyone could fall through that. So the code is you got to have a 4-inch gap between each of the balusters there. So that's what we did. Actually, ours are less than that. Ours are like 3 7/8 or 3 3/4, I think. And so that keeps kids from falling out. So on their original rig setup, they had 2 sets of rings that were attached to the rig. And I was here when the guys got on them, and man, it was a little scary. There was a lot of movement back and forth, and they were not really firmly attached. So what we decided to do here was use the beams of the structure. So basically there was a huge beam here on this corner that we bolted into, and then into the floor, and then we also went up to the beam in the ceiling and tied it in at the ceiling. Because we actually did some demo work on it, and the top was flexing, and I didn't like that. So we beamed up and attached into the beam with a bunch of flag bolts. So it's really, this one's really good now too. This one here, because it's so tall and the beam is so tall, we were able just to go right into the beam in, I think, like 5 different places on this. Mainly at the top is where we're anchored in. And this one is very, very strong and firm as well. So that turned out good. All right, let's go this way. So this space here, this is a warehouse, and there was like receiving at the front area here where we're going to walk into that room. But this is where they stored all the stuff. And again, they wanted more space. They wanted to be able to see kind of through, like where, they wanted to have it more open so you could see what's going on in each room. So basically, there was nothing in these walls, so we just opened them up. We just, there was originally plywood, which is this blue plywood, was here. And then we just took off the plywood and just took everything out, re-supported beams here. These are 3 2x12s that are all screwed together and beamed on both sides, so again, supporting the upper structure. Yeah, they put in flooring. They put all this new rubber flooring, which was not, I didn't do the rubber flooring. These guys did it and did a great job cutting and seaming all this stuff back together again. So come on in here. This is the main entry door here to the gym. When you walk in, this is what you get. And they built a little personal training studio area here. Again, all this drywall was done. Everything was, they just laid the floor and then brought in the equipment. So they've got some really cool equipment. And I'm going to do a video, or I'm going to talk to the owner, Michael. And he's going to do a video to show you about some of this equipment and how it works. Because it's pretty cool stuff. So we'll do that. We'll hung some TVs. Again, a TV in here. Again, for training. Or if you're hanging out and just messing around with your buddies. We're going to do some merch eventually. I don't know how we're going to design that or where that's going to go, but we'll put something up for merch. They got a nice little cooler. I like these boxes. I didn't do anything with the boxes, but these are PR lifting. And the thing I like about these is they actually put a little edge on them. Versus being like some of the older ones that I've seen, they don't have any rounded edges, and these things just get torn to bits. And these also have a little bit of a finish, which is nice. I've seen them without finish and without rounded edges, but if you can round an edge, again, it's going to give you a little bit more longevity. So I like seeing that. What else? Bathroom. That was there. I didn't have to do anything with that. Again, great storage underneath the stairs. We've got some mats. We hung a little mat rack here, and those are great. And again, storage of more weights and stuff that you can just pull out.